System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, November 20th. I am Amin TMK. That is Amoja Little Tanky Sumler fixing his video, his images, so we can see his pretty face. Can't see it, podcast listeners. I'm so sorry. I want to say, let's give some love to the podcast listeners early. We always give them late. So what's up, podcast listeners? How y'all doing? Tanky, how are you doing today, my friend?
Man, lovely. You know what I'm saying? Filled with joy. Kamala wins.
Filled with joy.
Yeah. Wait, look, man, we in peacetime, bro. When you gotta let it.
I forgot.
Peacetime, bro.
I forgot about the peacetime thing. Let's get into some news, shall we? We want to talk about this for a little bit. There's always news. There's always tons of news. Maybe one day we'll get to do the news every day, you know, and that will be our only thing.
Today is not that day.
Today's not that day. But let's get into some geopolitics, if we can. Let's start with Japan's prime minister over
Takaichi.
Yeah. So she is the new prime minister elected this year, right? Or appointed this year. I don't really know how Japan's electoral system works, and I don't want to pretend. Whatever it is. But she does have that, how do you say, Western puppet vibe, right? I mean, it's not just me.
Anime Western puppet. I mean, it's not even the Disney style. It's straight like.
Yeah, she is in your face. That's for sure. So she made comments about Taiwan and coming to the aid of Taiwan if something were to transpire between China and Taiwan, which is weird because China and Taiwan is China. So I don't really know what the deal is. Don't get involved in civil wars, as you always say. But that didn't fly in China. So I want to, if I can, I want to play something for you. And this is one of our guys. Can't remember his name. You probably will remember when you see him. But basically, he's always, anytime there's some smoke to be had.
Is it Wang Yi?
I think so, yeah.
They send Wang Yi? Y'all, shit.
Take a look here. Smoke. You'll be able to tell me immediately. Instant smoke. But this is our guy right here, and he's always giving us gems. So this, I think, is always a good response if you really want to know sort of what China is feeling and thinking. I think this is your guy. So let's just give it a listen, and we'll get your response.
Takaichi's statements are shocking and will really push the situation into an abyss as far as Japan is concerned. Don't play with fire, because you are talking about Japan getting involved militarily against China. Come on.
Let me start with Japan. The Japanese new Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, has recently claimed Japan could face a survival crisis if a conflict over Taiwan happened. How do you interpret her remarks?
I think Prime Minister Takaichi's statements are shocking and will really push the situation into an abyss as far as Japan is concerned.
China has responded very strongly, but many Western critics say China is overreacting. Do you think China is overreacting?
Do they want to wait for another bombing of Pearl Harbor by Japan? Do they really want to suffer the consequence of another surprise attack by Japan? Japan did this many times. So wake up those people who have any complacency. For example, they either don't know history or they never read the international treaties or the international agreements. And if they do not know all the mistakes and all the criminal intent of Prime Minister Takaichi, then they do not qualify to even open up their mouth in this world, because they will mislead the world. They will lead to the repetition of another bombing of Pearl Harbor. That is the serious moment we are facing with.
How likely is Japan to get involved if the mainland moves towards reunification?
Wake up. Anyone in Japan, never indulge in that fantasy. It's a fantasy.
So yeah, that's Victor Gao. It's even more serious, right? When they send him, right, because he doesn't officially work for the government. He's kind of like Professor Morandi, you know what I'm saying, with Iran. When the government needs to kind of get something out, they send him, but you're not official, you know? That's Victor Gao, you know what I'm saying? And he be going off, and that's what he do. The one thing I would say is it still shows how much he doesn't understand America and American culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, first off, fucking no American is reading international treaties. Like, are you a fucking lawyer? You know what I'm saying? I mean, me and you do that kind of goofy shit, but that's so we can bring it to the people, man. Promethean work, man. Sisyphean work. But, like, that's just not something that happens here, right? You can't get motherfuckers to read a newspaper. You think you're going to read some international treaty? But the reality is also he's still hoping on like the self-preservationist understanding of Americans, right? Like, do you want Pearl Harbor to happen again? America ain't got no fucking fear of Japan. Like, none. Like, but that's the reality too. And that's the thing that should come across. China has no fear of Japan. None. It's a big deal, right? People talk about the Taiwan issue without having any real grasp of like how tricky and emotional a topic that is for China. You know, it's think about how Southerners in the United States get when you bring up the American Civil War. Okay, and that was 200 years ago, damn near, right? This Civil War is less than 100 years ago. And the side that lost is over there in Taiwan. You know, it's embarrassing for them. You know, they know that there's only one China, as much as everybody else in the world knows. This is not like me being like edgy, like as a matter of international law, right? And treaties, Taiwan is a province of China. It's not controversial. The United States acknowledges this. The State Department of the United States acknowledges this. Britain acknowledges this. France acknowledges this. It's not like some radical belief that only one or two, like, the Russians and the North Koreans believe this. No, everyone, there's like 16 countries on earth that don't believe this. And they're like fucking Nassau, you know what I'm saying? Little bitty fucking islands that are completely controlled and captured by the United States government, and they get to be the protest vote. But the United States itself has a one China policy that says there is one China and that government is in Beijing. Like, it's not feelings, it's not vibes. This is international law. You know what I'm saying? It's about, yeah.
No, keep going. And I won't forget my question.
Okay, well, the last thing I want to say is, as it relates to Japan, this is why it's a big deal. The last time Taiwan was not part of the Chinese mainland government was when Japan took the island. They took the island and occupied it in 1898 and kept it until 1945. A little thing called, World War II, and the fascists were defeated. They had to give the island back to China. So when Japan is talking about invading China, that's because you have to see it. They're not saying protecting Taiwan. In China, that's going to be read as Japan invading China. And you have to understand that as an American. And to China, it goes all the way back to the century of humiliation, the century of sadness. And they're not going to do that shit again. To them, it's like in Goodfellas, like, you've been away a long time. I don't shine shoes no more. This shit is deeply embarrassing to the Chinese. There are people in China that were still alive when Japan had occupied Taiwan. And not just Taiwan. Japan has occupied all parts of China. Look up what happened in Nanking. It seems to be quite controversial for all the feminists out there. It's one of the most horrible war atrocities has ever happened, certainly in the contemporary era. It rivals and dwarfs almost anything that Nazi Germany did. You know what I'm saying? And everybody forgets this shit because, we all like One Punch Man and anime and shit. Like, Japan has shit to answer to. And the Chinese, for a lot of the Chinese, this shit is not over. So when Japan talks this way, this kind of reckless way, even the prime minister, right? You know, I think about when Michelle Obama was talking about this country's not ready for a woman leader. Well, Takaichi is a woman leader. And you know what she does? She spends a lot of time praying and meditating at the cemetery for the Japanese war criminals that went out and literally raped millions of Korean women, Chinese women, Philippine women, Vietnamese women, all through World War II. This is something that everyone knows, and Japan to this day still has not apologized for. And this woman prime minister goes there and prays at the altar of these men. So I don't know what Michelle want.
Can you talk a little bit about Okinawa and sort of the parallels or sort of maybe the irony of Japan trying? I don't know, maybe you've already mentioned it already, but sort of.
No. That's a great parallel. Okay, so the way to think about Taiwan, right, in many ways, I think it parallels the Ryukyu Island situation. Most Americans have no idea there's a place called the Ryukyu. It's an island chain, and those people do not consider themselves Japanese, but they're occupied by the Japanese and have been so for a couple of hundreds of years. But the Japanese don't consider themselves Japanese. The Japanese don't consider the people from the Ryukyu Islands Japanese. The people from the Ryukyu Islands don't consider themselves Japanese. So what happens is, and again, in America, we call the place Okinawa, right? I've been there. Fucking gorgeous place. So what happens is, because America still has so many military obligations, Japan has obligations to the United States, right, to host so many troops, again, as a result of World War II. What does Japan do? Japan puts almost a far more significant percentage of those bases are down in the Ryukyu Islands, because it's like, well, fuck it. You know, let them be down there. Let the Americans be down there with them if the Americans have to be there, right? None of the people in the American press talk about, you know, free the Okinawans, right? Free the Ryukyu. And these are truly a distinct group that are not genetically Japanese. They have their own distinct culture and have wanted to have an independence movement for quite some time. But to do so would mean to kick the United States troops out that are all housed there and to then fight the Americans and the Japanese, right? None of that conversation ever even makes it into American discourse. And what's ironic is the Ryukyu Islands are what stand between China, by way of Taiwan, right, and the Japanese mainland. So, like, you know, there's a 100% parallel that you can utilize that's actually less favorable for the Japanese, because the thing about Taiwan is, for the overwhelming majority of the people that live there, they're still Han Chinese. We're still talking about ethnic Chinese people. Now, there are an indigenous group that live in Taiwan, but they are not the majority of the people that live there. And that goes back for thousands of years. Again, Taiwan has been part of China longer than the United States of America has existed.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the context, and it's important to understand the history. So let's talk about the right now. How about that? Let's talk about the right now, because these have
China. Beijing is cutting import.
They have real life consequences. Okay, being an American proxy has real life consequences, and one of those consequences is, if we're in a trade war with China, guess what? You got to be in a trade war with China. And the types of things that the Japanese prime minister is doing is not beneficial to the Japanese people. And this is one of those things. China puts a halt on fish imports from Japan as the diplomatic row continues over Prime Minister Takahashi Sana's remarks about Taiwan, and Beijing is warning more consequences to come. Let me play this video for you real quick. Get your take on it. Yeah, but again, real life consequences.
No Japanese fish for China. Beijing is cutting imports, the latest in the back and forth between the two countries. It all concerns comments new Prime Minister Takaichi Sanai made earlier this month about Taiwan. She said a Chinese invasion could be grounds for Japan to mobilize its self-defense forces. Now, China says tensions are so bad there wouldn't be a market for Japanese fish, and that more consequences will come if Japan does not issue a retraction. But Japan has not backed down, lodging its own complaints against China. A since-deleted threat posted on social media by China's consul general in Osaka has especially drawn attention.
Regarding the extremely inappropriate remarks made recently by China's consul general in Osaka, Shreijian, Kensai Masaki, the director general of the Japanese Foreign Ministry's Asian Affairs Office, once again lodged a strong protest and firmly called for China to take immediate appropriate action.
Okay, so this is in right in your face, right there. You like I was mentioning this to you a little bit before, and it's like, yes, China is not their military is not really blooded, you know. They don't fight wars, so they don't have that experience. But when it comes to the trade war, they seem to be doing just fine. They know, like you said, what lever to hit. How can they hurt a country without necessarily like militarily, but through the trade war? And this is that was my thought process. What was your thoughts on that and sort of where they are in terms of economic relations with Japan and China?
I think about that quote from The Godfather. The Godfather 3. I know, like, everybody's gonna shun me for quoting that movie, but like there was.
Can we let The Godfather 3 hate go?
Let it go,
okay, guys.
man.
It was right. I get you were disappointed back in when did it come out? 90?
Who knows?
Whatever, 80s, 90s. I get that we were upset it wasn't as good as the first two, but it's still pretty good. Your thoughts on?
And he says, politics. He says economics is a gun, and politics is knowing when to pull the trigger. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's happening there, right? You got to continue. Remember, once again, war is a continuation of politics through other means. That's von Clausewitz. It's one of the most famous quotes about war out there. What's happening right now is war from a truly Sun Tzu point of view, right? They're just choosing not to use a gun. They're using economics. Like, this is a punishment, right? In China's eyes, they're taking a lesser government out to the backyard and spanking them. Because, and this is the same thing they did with the Americans. Like, if you're going to talk this way about China, China will close our markets to you. Which is something historically Japan always did, until they were forcibly opened by the Americans and Admiral Perry in the 19th century. People have this expectation that the Chinese markets will always provide this safety net to their governments, Well, we'll do good. We'll sell all this to China. China can easily say nah. And what's missing in that story is the why, right? This is something that China has been talking about for quite some time, ever since Japan released the flooded nuclear waters from the Fukushima nuclear project into the ocean. Like China's been like, I don't know if we want to buy the fish from Japan. Who knows, right? And that's completely missing in the story. No, but again, it just goes back to China having lots of ways to punish countries that choose to be adversarial to them without necessarily using guns, which is the American way. But they reserve the right to use guns. And you have to understand the mood in China is fucking sour as it relates to Japan. They do not like Japanese culture because, especially with the trends over the last 20 years, where they've continued to be more and more right wing, right? People in America still think about like, oh, Japan is a pacifist nation. And they don't even have a military. That hasn't been true for like 20 fucking years. Like Japan has a pretty competent military as far as their technology goes. Look, it's not at the level of Russia, it's not at the level of the United States, and it's not at the level of China. But other than that, I mean, the Japanese military would probably be more than a match for the British military. You know what I'm saying? Like the contemporary British military as it exists, right? So it's not like a force that does not exist, a threat that can't be backed up. And the problem is China has a long historical memory. They have not forgotten about the acts of Japan during World War II and the fact that the nation has still to this day not apologized. They haven't, and they're continuing to be adversarial. Imagine you stole my cheeseburger. I finally get my cheeseburger back and I'm like, yeah, I'm about to eat that cheeseburger. If you eat that cheeseburger, man, it's going to change something between us, right? You shouldn't have nothing to say about what I do with, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's China's position. What happens with Taiwan has nothing to do with anyone on earth other than Taiwan and China. This is even more so than the Ukrainian conflict. But what's really ugly in all of this is just like in most animes, I think about Ninja too, right? Which was such a big hit in China. The real villain has not been shown. Right? America's pumping Japan up, right? The same way they pumped the Netherlands up to take that next period company, right, from China to see what they'll do, right?
And then they saw back, by the way.
They gave it back. They gave it back. They unseized it and gave it back to China.
You can have it back. I was just joking.
They're doing literally the same thing with Japan, and that's the power of having proxies. You know what I'm saying? South Korea is not an effective proxy to wield against China in this way because North Korea still exists and resists. The Philippines, there's only so far they can go. Honestly, everyone understands what what the Chinese would do if it came to war between China and the Philippines. So to the Americans, the most credible military in the area that's not American is the Japanese. So flex your saber, right? But use Japan to do it. And so again, America sends Japan to threaten China. China punishes Japan to warn America. And that's the danger of this whole thing.
Now, I'm not saying this is a correlation or anything. I'm just saying Japan, they were the one that shot the former prime minister, right? Was that them? So, I mean, obviously the people are not happy with their government. And I think this is something that all Western governments can look at. You hate the people you elect. And that's just what it is, man. Macron, Starmer, I mean, even Donald Trump's numbers.
The Starmer's on the way out.
Plummeting.
Starmer's on the way out.
But you know whose is up? Xi Jinping. Claudia Sheinbaum, Vladimir Putin, they have approval ratings in the 70%. And here it's 30% and under, sometimes in the teens. So it just goes again that when your democracy is rigged and you have puppets and there's gerrymandering and there's, palms getting greased and there's corruption scandals. Who did it say? Who was it? Was it Kai Collis or who was it that was saying?
Yeah,
hey, look, it's just gonna be corruption when there's democracy, guys. Man. Like that is, they just want you to say, "Oh, accept this." When
no. That was Yermak. Yermak said that.
Yermak,
who works directly with Zelensky. He's like, I don't understand this anti-corruption thing. That's like some Russian shit. What are y'all talking about? There has to be a certain level of corruption in a democracy. That is what Yermak said, who, by the way, is under investigation for corruption right now.
Yeah.
He on the run.
And everyone knows it. So again, this is not to the benefit of the Japanese people. This is to the benefit of American hegemony and returning to be the only big dog in the world, and that's just not possible. I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts. Shout out to the podcast listeners who came up to us while we were hanging out in LA. We always appreciate that. We always got so much love. And yeah, we love being out there with the people. Although, I do love doing analysis with you, Brody. Shout out to our Patreon. Patreon.com/InnerCityLeft to be a part of what we're doing over there. More to come. Lots of fun pictures and things from our show we'll be putting up there soon. and Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins, InnerCityLeft.com. Check out the description below. Tanky, your final thoughts. What did I miss? Feelings?
Man, Zelensky about to be in Miami, buddy. He gonna be out there living with Juan Guaido. This shit is going.
He might
bad.
just slide to Miami. That's a afraid of don't go against the family reference. I mean, TMK, everywhere you find music. Lil Tanky, everywhere you find music. Was that it? Did you have anything? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nah, that's it. That's it.
All right, gang. We got love for y'all. Shout out to everyone who's on a movement with us. For Amoja, Lil Tanky, Summer, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.